Yo, what's up, y'all? Today we gonna be basically reacting to Candace Owens. Alright, y'all, let's get it.
Currently experiencing.
Positive movements.
Yeah.
So this right here, what's happening right now, I mean, I'm shocked at how many people in this room actually, when me and Charlie.
Currently experiencing.
Positive movements.
Yeah.
So this right here, what's happening right now, I mean, I'm shocked at how many people in this room actually, when me and Charlie started out, we did not have this many people in a room, and we're selling out everywhere that we go right now. And let me tell you guys, the most important aspect, and the thing that you should think is actually a positive thing, as crazy as it sounds, censorship. Because censorship is an indication that they're losing. When you have to start requiring fact checkers, when you have to start trying to encourage people to pull content offline and calling everything hate speech, it's because you know that you're no longer winning the argument. So as just one example, when Barack Obama was in office, we never had fact checkers. We never were told that the internet is not a safe place. We never had safe spaces. And the reason for that is because when Barack Obama was in office, the left was winning, right? The liberals were winning. I was a person that was convinced that they were telling the truth because the media sold that to me. I think they sold to a lot of people. They sold that idea that Barack Obama was going to be the end of all racial strife, right, in this country. And yet it actually manifested a beginning of racial strife from the time that I was a child, right? I had never seen anything like it since Obama was in office. So I always say that be encouraged by how desperate they're getting to shut down events like pulling alarms and requiring fact checkers to, censor every single thing that we're saying. It's a good thing. Next question.
Hi.
Hi.
What has been the most rewarding part of motherhood for you so far?
Okay, the most rewarding part of motherhood for me, there's a lot of them. Honestly, what I can really say to women is that the most we are in the school system about what family represents. I mean, we're constant having children.
Hold on. Here we go.
Children, even men, same messaging. It's going to be the end of your life. That is understanding how severe those lies are. And the most rewarding part, I'm not kidding, is every single day. You get to relive your childhood through your children's eyes, right? And just I mean, literally, it can be like my son right now. Like he is obsessed with French fries. Like he thinks French fries.
Crap. Here we go. Yes, indeed. I apologize for y'all for that. Had a little glitch.
My entire world changed when I had my awakening, as I like to describe it, and I realized that the way that we are meant to feel, the way that I felt for 20 plus years of my life was designed. It was a mental prison that I had stepped into, hadn't created for myself, but that I had stepped into purposefully by design. The education system, the messaging from culture telling us my entire world changed when I had my awakening, as I like to describe it, and I realized that the way that we are meant to feel, the way that I felt for 20 plus years of my life was designed. It was a mental prison that I had stepped into, hadn't created for myself, but that I had stepped into. Culture telling us constantly that we're black. We're black. People will never understand us, right? I believed that Republicans were racist and backwards. That I couldn't. And I had my big awakening. It happened, it's a bit of a longer story, but it happened in 2015. And suddenly I realized that the reason that Black people are trained to see their own oppression is it's because if you view yourself as a victim, you become your own oppressor. It's a mental prison. You can't get ahead. You're constantly thinking people are seeing you because of the color of your skin. And that is the real sadness of what's happening in our society, is that all we are doing is preventing people from going out in the world and trying something because they're so fearful that they're going to be rejected because of this color of their skin. So I would say as soon as you start seeing yourself as American, and connecting with people that hold that same philosophy, you just unlock all of your creativity and every single passion that you've ever had in your life, and you know that you can do it because you know it's possible, and that the only thing that's stopping you is your mentality.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Currently, right now, there's an active campaign to cancel myself and a few of my colleagues for voicing our opinion, our freedom of speech in our private group chat. And that's 6 years of education on my half. I'm a double major in STEM, and I'd just like some advice on what a person who has been canceled should do. The left has called me an anti-Semite, even though I'm Jewish. I think you know someone else named Ben who's a Jew and has been called an
I think
anti-Semite.
Ben might be a Jewish person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a name. Yeah, I mean, you're totally right.
But keep this short. I read Michael Knowles' article, Do Not Apologize. And I was just wondering if you could give me any more advice or maybe some support that I could go to.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, know that you were in a unique time, having a new unique experience, and that's why it's important for you to know that it just wasn't like this a few years ago in college. And the entire system is being built right now to break you down psychologically, right? I read a wonderful piece in the New York Post about a psychological immune system, which people have realized is real, right? They can break you down psychologically by calling you a bunch of names, by constantly telling you and castigating you and telling you that having these ideas is wrong. And the point is to make you feel defeated, right? To make you give in and to think that this is it, I'm done because somebody called me a racist or someone called you an anti-Semite. You have to develop on the back end of that a sense of humor. Let me tell you, I laugh harder. I mean, if people knew how much fun I was having, they would hate me. If journalists knew how much I laugh when I read these articles about me, I actually consider the name game of calling me all of these things. Like I'm like playing Pokemon ball. Like I'm like, I gotta catch them all. I gotta catch them all. I'm like, they never called me that. Woo, they called me it. I got it. I got this unique ball. They called me this, and it's incredible. They've called me a racist, right? A self-hating black person, and Uncle Tom, a coon, an anti-Semite. You know, so once you realize that words really have no power. First off, you said you're STEM. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'd like to see you out in the real world against these people that can't even form a sentence and say "F you."
They don't want me.
They don't want you. You're gonna be just fine. I promise you.
Hi, Candace. I'm just wondering if you're choosing to homeschool your kids or put them in public school.
I get this question all the time. At the moment, my every inkling is to homeschool them, but I have to actually wait until I get into that step because it depends on where you live, how radical the school systems are. Like I'm in Tennessee, like we still have the original rednecks down there. My assistant's a redneck. Like, you know, they don't play around with these woke games down there. And I'm moving deeper into Tennessee. So like Nashville is a bit liberal, like all cities are. But Tennessee is a decisively red state, and we were just the first state that said they found out what was going on in Vanderbilt University Hospital, and they're gonna ban that. So I think that what I always say to parents is to make sure that you are a hawk. You know, when you're going out to decide what school your children should be in, make sure you're asking all of the right questions, that you're speaking to parents locally and seeing what their ideas are and get as involved as possible. I obviously, of course, would love for my child to have that social experience of going to public school, but I'm a real mama bear. And if I find out one teacher said something funny to my kid, it's going to be a bad day in hell for that teacher.
Hi, Candace.
Hey.
So it's kind of tough navigating the real world as a straight white male. How would
I never understood why people didn't like her. I never understood why people don't like her. But let's keep going.
It's
How would
so
you-
true. It's so sad.
what is some of the best advice you could give a straight white male just trying to get through modern day America?
This is honestly like the realest question I've ever been asked. And I'm laughing because I feel so bad, and it's so crazy that we're here in life where like this is the question that was probably asked by Black Americans anywhere as they came together during times of Jim Crow, and now suddenly it's like, gosh, I better just problematize myself. And you have literally white people that are pretending to be gay or something on their college apps just so people are like, oh, there's something different about them, so now I'll let them into school. And it's not a meritocracy. If you're a white male, they're openly saying we don't want you because you're a white male. So I first want to validate this question 100%, because I mean, I just did Dr. Phil. I was sitting around with professors that were saying that they will not allow people into their school if they're white, right? Because it's just problematic to be white. So the first thing I would say is that bless the fact that we live in this country and that you can be entrepreneurial and you can start your own businesses and you don't have to worry about what other people think about you or whether or not they like you. The second thing is that every person who is being treated like that needs to figuratively grow a pair, right? Stop apologizing would be the first thing that I would say, right? The problem is that when you are being, yes, you should applaud that. Stop apologizing when you do nothing wrong. And I think that what has happened is that people have been so afraid of being smeared that they just apologize even when they don't mean it. And that is the first thing that weakens a person, is saying stuff that you don't mean. It doesn't just weaken the individual, it weakens society at large. And so if you do something wrong, you obviously say sorry. But if you don't do something wrong, don't apologize, and know that you're amongst friends when you're in a room filled with conservatives, whether they're black, white, Hispanic. We all know what's actually happening in this country. And I do think that the size of this room demonstrates the mist of a sea change. So stay firm.
Thank you.
Hi. My advice is how to give advice to my daughter. On last Wednesday on her way to school, my 7-year-old in the back seat became hysterical. When asking her what was wrong, she told me she didn't want to be white anymore.
That's so sad.
And that her white classmate told her that being white means that they kill black people.
Oh.
That was absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Of course, then I dive into who her parents are, and they are white from out east. What advice can I give my daughter? I told her God doesn't make mistakes and that she's the right color. What other things could I have told her?
You can tell her all those things, but you should also breathe fire and see where, why that is taking place. Because if that ever happened to my kid, I mean, that's just heartbreaking that kids go through that. But that tells you that there's an administrative problem that was allowed to happen. I would first and foremost, that happened at school, right?
It happened at recess, from my understanding.
Yeah. And so the first thing that you should do is that you need to make sure that you go and you represent your child and you are her voice, and you tell the teachers and the administration exactly what happened. Because if it happens to her and you say nothing, it's going to happen to the next kid. Those kids that said that to her should be made an example of, right? When you tell somebody that that's what's going to happen to them because of the color of their skin, that's racism. You're this because you're white. If that had ever happened, again, if you inserted and you switched the races, if that had ever happened to a young black girl and they said something fundamentally racist to a young black girl, they would have suspended everyone. They would have suspended people that didn't even make sense. They would have just suspended all white people from school, right? Mm-hmm. It would have been like the #1 top trending topic on Twitter. The Washington Post would have come down and gloriously sat with the NAACP and talked about this event. When something horrible and backwards and racist happens to your kid, you have to be their voice. Parents have to have a spine. You need to talk to the administration, talk to the principal, talk to the teacher, and raise some hell about that. It'll help the next kid.
Do I reach out to the parents too?
Yeah, the parents, everyone. I would reach out to everyone.
Thank you.
Honestly, I just pray that it's never my kid. I feel so bad for the people that will be involved if that is my child that goes through anything like that.
Hi, Candace.
Hey.
My name is Zach. So I have to admit something to you. I'm very, very moderate. I used to think that means everyone agrees with me. I've discovered that it means that no one does.
I love that.
But that being said, I grew up and built a lot of friends with very varying different political views. And for me, that was never something that's an issue. But I found as I've grown older and as I've gone through college, it's become incredibly difficult to be able to connect and really build a sense of camaraderie and unity across people with beliefs different than mine, or where my beliefs are different than theirs. What do you say we can do to really rebuild unity?
I think it comes down to being able to know what a friendship is and what a friendship isn't. I went through this a lot, obviously, when I had my awakening and everyone around me was a leftist or a liberal, because that was how I lived my life. And I realized I didn't have anything in common with these people anymore. And what I decided to do was that I was not going to not be who I was, because if I had to censor elements of myself, it wasn't a real friendship, right? That's a performance. If you have to walk into a room and pretend to be someone else, that turns you into an actor. I can't be somebody's actor or actress. I can be somebody's friend. And to calmly explain to them what I think, and if they ever did anything, that said, oh, well, having these opinions makes you this or that, we're not friends. And that's not because of political beliefs. It's because you believe me to be a horrible person. So the advice that I'm giving to you is not to compromise who you are. Don't feel like you need to transform everybody into yourself, but know that real friends, even if they have differences in beliefs, can be respectful to each other. I have friends where we agree on like 80% of things, 20% of the things we don't. We just kind of don't have those topics. But if they wanted to force that conversation, they would know where I stood on it. And that's a productive friendship. A lot of my friends changed because, again, your friendships are determined by your values, and that's okay. I think that the second that I stopped trying to hold on to these friendships that were completely not friendships in the retrospect, I had one girl that I really tried to hold on to. It was a friend that lives down in Argentina, and I've been friends with her for such a long time, and I wrote about it in my book. It's one of my chapters. And eventually I just realized this is so toxic. It makes me miserable every time I talk to this person. Why am I doing this, right? And what will happen is new friendships will pop up in their place, and they will be better, and they will bring you closer to being a more formed and a happy person. You have a right to pursue happiness.
Thank you.
Hey,
So congrats on your movie.
Thank
I know
you.
it takes a lot of effort to put stuff like that out there. Let's see. So I know you've spoken on like toxic Black culture and all that stuff. Besides public speaking, what are you doing to combat against toxic Black culture? And then how does your movie Unveiling BLM add to what you're doing? Do you see how it can add to it? Do you see how it can hinder the movement?
yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked it, obviously, because it just lets me brag about myself. So the thing that the media never tells about anybody, and it's so infuriating that they ever say about me, is that it's just like Candace is just critiquing Black America, and then they just strip away everything that I do for Black America. I run a charity. It's called Blexit.com. It's a successful charity, and we are in 39, actually now 41 states. You can go on to Blexit.com, and you can see what we are doing in these inner cities. We have after-school programs in which we pick up these children that are in disadvantaged districts, and we bring them so that they can learn different ideas, and so that their parents don't have to worry about them being on the streets. Aside from after school programs, we run summer camps for these children so that they have somewhere to go, so that their parents don't have to worry about them being on the streets. Aside from just complaining about BLM and all the destruction that it brought to inner cities, we raised over $100,000 and gave it. We picked Black businesses that had been destroyed in the George Floyd riots, and we gave it to them. Now, I'm telling you all this stuff because the media never will. They need to paint me as a monster and a person that hates my own race, because I have higher expectations, because we should have higher expectations. And there's been this routine lowering of the bar. In terms of the documentary, my purpose in producing that film was that I never thought that there was a more toxic narrative for Black America than the George Floyd story and the lies surrounding it. And I wanted to do that film in a compassionate way, because after speaking to his roommates, I felt sad. This was a man that was struggling with drug addiction. Drug addiction is something that probably every single person in this room can relate to. Somebody in your family, a cousin, a brother. This is something that touches Americans. And the George Floyd story should have been a story that brought Americans together. And it's not his fault that after he died, horrible people used the media narrative to divide Americans, to burn down Black inner city communities, and to raise BLM into the multi-million-dollar organization that essentially stole from Americans. And so I wanted to expose all of that, because I think that once you expose a lie that big, it helps people be less emotional and to really understand, which was, I think, the thesis of my film, which is that the media is our enemy.
So then, what can I do to add to what you're doing?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I said, what can I do to add to what you're doing?
Join Blexit. We join the Blexit chapter. Get involved. Every single person. I better see Blexit numbers going off. As soon as you got here, Blexit.com. See what we're doing. And it's an organization that's it's small pocket donors that give $1 a month that allows us to do what we do and to actually make a difference. And it's honestly the best part of what I get to do, other than going home to my children.
Hello, my name is David. I have a short question followed by a longer one. The first one is, do you have any recommendations for middle ground sources that you could give to people who you want to ease into more conservative ideas?
Would you say I'm not a moderate, middle of the ground source? Okay, fine, fair enough. Fair enough. You know what? It depends on where they are at ideologically. I think probably if they were on the left and you were trying to bring them over this way, tell them they should watch a little more Bill Maher, because it seems like something's dawned on Bill Maher as he's starting to cover how toxic woke culture has become, and it's leading to him being attacked. I mean, the greatest voices that we have are people that are, still identify as liberal and are realizing that something has gone really wrong and awry. So I think Bill Maher is great at that. Dave Rubin, who was, a liberal, I think the first time he ever said that he thought he was conservative was, a couple of months ago, or maybe in his last book or something. But watching all of his old stuff on YouTube, he was like fully on the left, fully liberal. And you can actually see how just his mind changed after having conversations and being at least open to having conversations. So I would say those would be like two people that you could probably point them to that still do great work and are able to host people on both sides. And by the way, Joe Rogan is not a conservative. I don't know what the media is trying to pretend he is. He talks to people on the far left, he talks to people in the middle, and Spotify has done a good job of standing by him. So I think that he's also a helpful resource.
Yeah, they've often said Joe Rogan is a conservative, but when we watch his shows, he don't have conservative views. But that's just the media portraying them a certain type of way. So she's absolutely right in that.
And then my follow-up question, this one's a bit more specific. During a debate that I had in one of my classes, we were talking about the validity of the First Amendment Establishment Clause pertaining to a Ten Commandments statue that's at Fargo City Hall. And
Okay, we're probably going to have to give me some details on that.
yeah, so there
Fargo City Hall.
At Fargo City Hall, there's a monument that has the Ten Commandments on it,
Mhm.
cross that has a reference to Judaism, and it was donated by a group back in like 1970, and then a group called the Red River Freethinkers believed that it was an establishment of religion on government property because it was technically on government property, and they believed that it should be removed, or at the very least that more groups should be able to add monuments to it. And then there was a petition to have it not removed by the people of Fargo, and they decided to not remove it. Then the city hall put in a mandate that said that no other monuments could be put on the same land.
Mhm.
And in the debate, I basically cited saying that it should stay, but other groups should be able to add, or other religious groups should be able to add their own, say, moral or law documents that are a part of history and how we came about bringing up things like governments. So in that debate, I argued along those lines of it should stay because it has historical significance and moral significance, or history to this morality of people. And I think that given that those ideas would manifest in a place such as a city hall, they have validity in staying there. And one of my classmates asked me if me believing that it should stay was erasing the ideas of other religions. And this is a quote here, similar to how Texas is removing critical race theory and gender studies from their universities.
This is just like the left defiling history is what you're talking about. And like their whole idea now.
How you would respond
Yeah,
to
well, because it's
someone
like the
asking
whole
you
idea is
that.
that they're actually trying to put something new. If your argument, and again, I don't have all the details on this, is that the preservation of history is good and it's important. I agree with that full-heartedly, right? This is something that obviously has historical significance. What they're trying to do is say it needs to either be defiled, removed, or we need to put something new here that never existed and has no historical significance here. Obviously, if it's been there, there's a reason that it's been there. And I think that we need to realize is that when what the left wants to do is to create this idea of a progressive forward future where nothing really exists and everything's wrong and everything's backwards. They look through everything of a lens of everything that happened before us is bad, right? Everything is bad. Tradition is bad. Judeo-Christian beliefs are bad. Anything that got us here to this moment in time is bad and it needs to be wiped out because at the end of the day, they're nihilistic, right? They're nihilistic.
Right is
they're
wrong.
anarchists and they are angry. I mean, the idea that this is
The wrong is right,
tell you
basically.
what did the statue do? This is happening all across America. And so what it really is that it's a battle between traditional values and
In other words, right is wrong, wrong is right. And that's the direction they want to go in. But people still gonna continue voting for them.
a battle between traditional values and progressivism. And the truth about progressivism is that there's nothing more regressive than people that purport to want to, go into the future. Actually, what they're doing is they're sending us back. Now we're having these race issues in debate. We're being told that we're not allowed to love God. And I already pointed to while I was on stage what it is really that they're after, which is really a society that has nothing but the state, right? So we can't have the cross, you can't have the Star of David because in its place you're supposed to be worshiping the state, and that should get you to what they're really after. It's not even a sincere debate that they're having. It's totally disingenuous.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Candace.
Hello.
My name's Clara. I'm just wondering, as a young woman in college, what's a tidbit of advice or knowledge that you wish that you were told, or young men as well? Just some advice that you wish you had with you in college.
That the entire experience is temporal. Enjoy it. Don't get too frustrated in the arguments, because what's going to happen is these ideologues that are outside marching are going to be smacked in the face with real world consequences when they get out into the real world and realize that nobody needs a gender studies major, right? And so, in the end, even if you feel like you're losing the battles in your classroom, you are going to win them in the real world when you have a STEM major and you have people that are actually able to be productive in society. And those people that you saw in the hallways marching are not going to be competing with you. They're going to continue to march for every single cause, and they're not going to have anything. They're going to have a radical emptiness if they don't transform themselves before it. So, what I would say is tether yourself to the reality that in the end, we win.
Thank you.
I'm so tired.
Hi, Candace. I'm
Hey.
Hannah.
I apologize, guys. I'm
So
so
my
tired.
question was, you kind of talked about
Yeah.
censorship earlier, about how it's a good thing, but also as a college student, how do you combat that? Because, you know, growing up, people always told me, like, be careful. People can take screenshots of everything.
Mhm.
Like, they
What do you
can
mean
use it against-
censorship is a good thing?
Oh, you were mentioning it earlier, like that we're winning. That censorship is.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I mean, like, yeah, it's a good thing
the
because it indicates that we're winning. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true.
But it is happening, and so
Yeah.
like, how do you combat it exactly?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you were trying to get a job, like I've heard of instances where people, you know, pull out, oh, you posted this on Facebook so many years ago.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I would say is yes, look out for that. That's dangerous, and it's scary that they're doing that. Is that they're trying to have this trial by fire of what you said and what you thought. The truth is that you're growing up. You're going to be an idiot. Part of growing up is the experience and being allowed to be an idiot. The difference is when I was a kid, we were allowed to be dumb for a little bit, and we didn't have social media. It was the land before Facebook and Twitter, and you get to try out being mean. You know, on the playground, you say some stuff and like whatever. You get home, it's like, actually, I shouldn't have said that. I didn't feel good when I said that. You're allowed to grow up. And one of the greatest sins of this generation is that they're telling people that they don't have the right to transform, right? And they don't have the right to grow up, that everything you say is forever and you're not allowed to really evolve. We're talking about evolution, which is so natural to the human spirit. And when you can't evolve, you die. When you stop evolving and growing, you die. And you have people that are being told that psychologically, this is all you'll ever be. So I hate that. I resent that. And the way to combat that is that when we get out into the real world and we're the ones that are having the companies, we stop doing that crap. We stop saying, let me check out to see what this person said when they were 11 years old and their mom let them have TikTok, right? We need to say, okay, this person was 11 years old, they were a child, and I would not have survived that trial by childhood had I had TikTok when I was 11 either. None of us were great people. Don't let these freaking bad faith actors pretend like, oh my God, what you did was so horrible. I was just so great when I was 10. They're not. They're really not. They're not even great when they're 2. My kid's yelling at me. He's over yelling at me, right? And so tether yourself that reality. Know that that what's going to happen naturally is that there's going to be the answer to the left-leaning economy. We're now seeing the beginning of the conservative economy. It's the reason why someone like Elon Musk steps up and says, I want to buy Twitter, right? Or Ye wants to buy Parler. It's because people that are conservative are realizing that censorship is a threat to everyone. And so what's naturally going to happen and what is happening is that we are creating our own space and we are going to flourish and we're going to win.
Thank you.
Hello. First off, I'd like to say thank you for coming to our campus. The question I have is, in an education system ruled by leftist nuts and liberal professors who spew their ideological garbage upon their students from a position of power, is there a time to stand up for truth? And if so, when?
Always. What do you mean? Always. Absolutely. I mean, and the same advice that I gave to the mother who said, what do I do? If you write a paper that disagrees with an ideologue and they give you a bad grade because they're an ideologue, you better take that all the way to the top. I mean, you better, until we start creating a problem and exposing these schools, that's what they hate. They hate publicity, right? They never like it when a story goes viral about what happened on their campus and how they treated a student. And so you guys have to create that publicity when they do things like that and show them that we're not the minority. I mean, look around in this room, like you guys are not the minority. They just want you to feel like you're the minority. The radical left is a minority. The majority of people in the United States of America don't think that kids can pick their genders, right? You feel that way because they are a minority that controls the education system. So it's incredibly important that you never think that there's a period of time in your life where you should stop telling the truth or stop saying the truth, right? You should never get used to lying to yourself or to others. That's what they want you to do. So don't let that program to happen. And the other thing, which I always say, and this is maybe a bad time because we're on a college campus, is really consider whether or not you even need to go to university. Don't allow that peer pressure campaign of like, oh, if you don't get a degree, you're not going to be successful. So, take $100,000 out in student loans and already owe the government. Talk about statism before you even get out and try or even know what you want to do. That's why I went to school. I felt peer pressure to go to school. Nothing that I am doing has anything to do with what I was studying in school. I promise you, least of all that stupid feminist class I was supposed to take as a prereq. Anyways, that's all. I'm not going to rant about that. Next question.
Thank you.
Hi, Candace. I'm Michael.
Hey,
Very nice to
Michael.
meet you. My question is basically, what are your thoughts on political leaders having agendas that are trying to phase out and remove coal mining as a resource for energy?
Do not ever vote for them, ever. I mean, it is so ridiculous. Talk about an ideologue. The idea that we're going to live in a society, that's why I said earlier, like the whole energy stuff, it's green on the outside and it's red on the inside, right? The idea that we're going to somehow, like in California, they're trying to pass a law that is banning vehicles that are not electric after 2024, right? Or 2028. I can't remember the exact year. Completely ridiculous. It's the reason why they're facing an energy crisis in Europe right now, today, right? Because a bunch of ideologues said, no, don't have nuclear energy, even though nuclear energy is clean energy, right? This whole idea that, oh, well, we just shouldn't be drilling here in America. We could be completely independent. So it's ridiculous. And what they really are doing is they're trying to prevent you from using energy, right? If you think that when Leonardo DiCaprio gets on his private jets and flies to speak at a climate conference, that he's going to give up his private jets, they're going to ask you to give up your private jets. If you think that these people are just sipping the same disgusting paper straws that melt in your mouth while telling you that you should do it, you're out of your mind. The idea is to create a permanent underclass of people to tell you, as Gavin Newsom has done, we need to only use electric vehicles, but this summer, please turn off your AC because the electric grid is already suffering. Can you imagine a world where you can't even drive your car to work because suddenly there's a mandate that says no driving and we all have electric vehicles? Again, the idea is to move power from the individual and to cede it to the state. Do not ever do that. It is completely ridiculous, least of all when we know that the leaders in all of this carbon emission crap, which, by the way, carbon is good. Don't get me on a rant about freaking carbon and the lies surrounding that, right? But the real offenders are China, and they're not playing the game, right? You think China's ever going to stop with that energy industry? No, but what they will do is control the entire global economy because us idiots over here are playing Green New Deal. So it's crap. Never listen to it. It just leads to us not having any power over our own lives.
Pretty much.
Hi. I have a question followed by a request. I grew up with like my voice being silenced. I was in
I'm gonna be
autistic,
real
black,
with you.
Bisexual, foster.
Nuclear energy is by far the most cleanest energy, other than solar energy. It's other than solar energy as well too. So the whole thing against using the use of energy is pretty dumb. Because that's literally how this system, this country even thrives. You're cutting off the source of your power. And you think you're going to maintain being a superpower country? You're right.
In the foster system, and I worked hard to get my voice back, and now I've got my foot in a bunch of advocacy groups, and am now coming across the point where my voice is being silenced again. Like an hour ago when we were out there, or this last election. And I was just wondering if you had any like help that you could, or advice that you could offer.
Is your voice being silenced by individuals?
Just like in general, like after the last election, I like multiple times for some reason got told that I wasn't allowed to be black anymore.
Yeah, that happened to me. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. That's cool. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. No one can take away your blackness, right? And so somebody waving a magic wand and calling you anti-black or anti-Semitic, as Ben told us in line earlier, or calling you a homophobe, or all of these words they come out with, it's an attempt to silence you because they want you to be fearful of saying what you actually think to be true. Did it happen when they said you're not black? Did you magically turn into a white person? They're idiots. Don't listen to them. Honestly, keep talking. Find people that agree with you, and don't feel let down by that process.
Thank you. And then my request was, could I shake your hand?
Yes, of course. Oh, you're so sweet. Sorry, it's all sweaty from holding this mic. It's so nice to meet you. Yes. Hi, of course. Thank you so much. You're so welcome.
Man, hell yeah, I would have enjoyed that moment.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Dawson, and I'm pro-life, but I also believe that, in very extreme circumstances, if an abortion is needed, it should be performed. Like if there's harm to the mother or child, or like rape of a very young female. I was wondering if you ever think that there will be a middle point that both sides will meet in the middle and finally agree on something to.
No. And I'll tell you why. It's because the left argues in extremes, right? So the reason why you said, but in the circumstance a child is raped, is because they've already conditioned you to argue in an extreme, right? So imagine if we governed a society that wasn't the best, not like according to doing the best for the most people. We argued in extremes, right? So we're like, hey, you should put your kid should wear a seatbelt. And you're like, okay, but what if I'm driving my car and my car flips over and the seatbelt actually traps my child and I can't get them out? Because that actually happened one time in Arkansas on Highway 7. You're like, oh. And then suddenly they're like, well, we can't have seatbelt. We would have nothing. There are always going to be extreme circumstances. Our challenge is to make sure that what is happening is doing the most good to the most people, right? And because the left loves extremes, they always argue in terms of extremes, we're never going to come to an agreement, right? So that's an unfortunate thing that's true. And by the way, you can obviously point to the fact that the states that they pretend are so backwards, they've already carved out legislation for those pieces of extremes. But what could happen, which I always think about, is what if you say rape is a reason that you can't get an abortion, you're going to have a bunch of women that are false accusing, and that's going to create another problem. So it's important to just govern for the most good for the most people and move on from it.
Thank you.
My question for you is, I'm an elementary education major, and I bet there's probably teachers and like people who are going to education here too. What is advice for us who are conservative teachers or going into teaching, just like advice in general?
It's hard because I really do believe that the Department of Education needs to be destroyed. And yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I have been hoping that conservatives are going to come up with a conservative solution. So I again rely upon the free markets, and I hope that what we end up doing is actually creating like an app. I mean, we've created all these stupid apps like Tinder and all this stuff. Why can't we have an app where you can match with a teacher that's not crazy? And then have homeschooling sessions and be like, this person teaches this, I'm normal, I don't think your child can pick their gender, and I have a degree. So I'm hoping that technology plus education, ed tech, is going to be the next great dawning, especially following COVID, where parents are looking for solutions, because handing us into like the public school system is just not a solution. And my advice to you would be to target private schools. Yeah, because it still can be bad, but your chances are going to be better than if you feed into the system. Guys, I'm going to do one more question. I'm so sorry to cut off, but the line keeps getting bigger. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
So let me just start by saying thank you for coming out tonight. Huge honor to talk to you. Your name has come up on my Instagram feed every now and then, and I didn't realize you had like almost 5 million followers on Instagram.
You're late to the party.
Yeah, now I'm here. Okay, so long story short, kind of long story. So my parents are immigrants from the Philippines. And they faced a lot of prejudice just from people saying, "Oh, you're immigrants, you guys aren't going to make it, and all this stuff, like all these stereotypes that we have to believe in, these sort of norms." Long story short, my mom's been here for 3 years. She owns 3 businesses, and my 2 older siblings are both in the Air Force, and my sister is a master sergeant. So I was just wondering, what do you have to say for those people?
Yeah. Well, the real reason that nobody ever talks about Asians is because they're actually the most successful people in this country.
I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's true. And there's a reason why, so they always try to pit black versus white. So you hear things like, white people are more likely to be accepted for a credit card than a black person. And black people are being turned down more for credit cards. And the reason that they never enter the other fact, which is that Asian Americans are more likely to get a credit card than white Americans, is because it dispels their rumor that it's white versus black, and it actually shows you that we have a meritocracy. The truth about Asians is that they have a better culture, right? They focus on education. I remember, first and foremost, my second boyfriend in life was Filipino, so I'm educated about this matter. But I just, and yeah, he had like a crazy, crazy Filipino moms. Like, I mean, she was like hardcore. She didn't mess around. And then I had this girl who I was best friends with named Kathy, and she was Japanese, and her dad was terrified. And Kathy had to go home and she had to study, and she was expected to get straight A's. And that culture that they have seeded, it's the reason why literally, if you want to talk about discrimination happening in this country, it's Harvard turning down Asians. They're saying there's too many Asians that are doing well in this country and we don't want you. We need to fill in a couple of blocks here and put Black people in your place, even though they're working harder and they deserve to have those spots from university level. So the truth is that, and it's something we should talk about, there is such a thing as fostering better cultures, right? And that's why I talk about the fact that Black America has fostered a culture that does not focus on education, right? The things that are glorified in Black culture is you want to be like LeBron. Nobody talks about Thomas Sowell. Nobody talks about Condoleezza Rice. In fact, not only do they not talk about them, they call them Uncle Toms and they call them goons. They're rejected. All right, so we have a culture that thinks it's success and you have a 1 in a billionth chance to become the next LeBron James, but you have a 100% chance of becoming the next doctor if you stay in school. Right? So I think Asians are a stunning example of what it means to foster a good culture and to show you that no matter who you are, if you come to this country with good ideas, you're willing to work hard, that you can become successful. God bless you guys. God bless the American dream.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that was the end of this show, guys. And we're gonna watch this next one later on, though. Or should we watch it right now? How long is it? That's an hour long. I'm not gonna watch that. So, guys, what do you think? Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.